Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to all participants and viewers attending the International Virtual Conference, Regional Global in the Metaverse from all over the world. My name is Manuela Toteva, and I am privileged to moderate the event in the next 2.5 hours. For the official start of the program, I would like to invite Professor Teodora Petrova, the chair of the Department of Communication and Audiovisual Production at the Faculty of Journalism and Mass Communication in the Sofia University, to welcome our participants and share more about the event today. Professor Petrova.
Thank you, Manuela. I would be very short. Thank you for joining the conference. At the end, it turned out that it's a bunch of very prominent people. So thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoy it. And as we counted with Manuela, we have joined the conference from Sofia, Poland, UK, Spain, Italy, Germany, Canada, Ukraine, and at the end, New York. So it's really very global conference. Hope we'll have some questions. Hope we'll find our paths to see where we stay in regional, global, and at the end in Metaverse. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Manuela, and thank you for coming to everyone. Thank you, of course, to the production unit of Webit. Thank you to Webit for our partner, for their partnership, and at the end to National Scientific Fund, which funded this conference. So hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Professor Petrova. As you already know, the topic of the conference today is the Metaverse. I'm more than glad to have we have a keynote speaker who is attending for the first time an event hosted in Bulgaria, actually. So we have today with us Kazunomics, who is the host of the Real Nomics Market Show and CNBC featured analyst. Kazunomics, if you're on the line, the floor is yours.
How are you doing? Thanks so much for inviting me to the conference. So yes, I would be your first representative, I guess, from the Metaverse, right? Coming to you as my AR character, an NFT that I own from the Artifact CloneX ecosystem, which is a part of Nike. Nike is a major world brand, obviously, that has taken a stake in the Metaverse quite early, well ahead of pretty much everybody else, to entrench themselves in what likely is a very, very massive digital marketplace, really before it takes the kind of shape and form that most people would recognize as a viable marketplace. They've secured a lot of digital rights and methodologies that coming into this marketplace means you'd be paying them like a fee to do anything like what they've created now within the CloneX ecosystem, which is, deals with digital goods that have crossover potential in real world. Metaverse is a lot wider than just things like that. Obviously, it includes the potential for music distribution, empowers artists to directly retail their artwork and control royalties for if their artwork gets bigger down the line. There's a lot of different things that are, possible. If anybody's ever familiar with the movie Ready Player One, but that movie was a pretty crazy look at what is actually possible with the right computing power, which is where we're going, in the 2020s. So right now we're kind of like at the place where there have been many failed versions of this, mind you, but we're finally at a place where the horsepower of the computing world is that can actually support the vision of like a lot of the creators that have been pushing for this to happen. So that would be my first intro to what is the Metaverse.
Thank you so much. Do you want to continue? Do you want to share something more with us today?
If you guys have a specific question you want to ask me about, like, where you think things are, or something specific about, like, what else is possible in there. I think you guys have seen Zuckerberg, with Facebook. He's trying to make an all-in bid for his idea of what the metaverse is supposed to be like. And I guess and so I guess speaking on that, I could add that his main bet is the workplace, the virtual workplace is what's coming for us. And I can definitely say that as we move kind of like from Web 2.0 towards 2.0 towards 3. You can see the potential for working with people in geographic regions that wasn't possible before, and productivity gains to be had from something like that. I have relationships with folks in Australia that I never could have had before the crypto age, happened. And there will be, chances for people to work in virtual, boardrooms and things like that, and work on projects from parts of the world that could never have collaborated before. So there is a lot of different directions to talk about the metaverse, and whether it be talking about art, or talking about virtual workplaces.
Yeah, right. And when we speak about different audiences and the metaverse, because connected to the topic of the conference today, we're speaking about the different audiences. Mm-hmm. Do you have an overview on that? How they perceive the metaverse? How, for example, millennials or Gen Z accept the metaverse?
Well, you always have to kind of forward skew time and look at who's going to age into the consumer base of a given economy. And, Gen Z is aging into the voter demographic and aging into the earning demographics. And if you think about the first real viable metaverse, it was probably Fortnite. And Fortnite really showed what was possible, a massive world of people that you could merchandise to in a closed ecosystem. And that age bracket has no problem spending digital money online. So when you look at the kids who are about 17, 16 years old right now, they've been in a digital, economy already, and are quite used to that as a marketplace and a norm, and don't mind buying, virtual assets that represent them online. So it's not quite the same as if you think about it from the demographics that we are in today, the 30-year-olds and the 40-year-olds who go, that's crazy. I don't want to, pay for something I don't physically get touch. The kids that are behind us very much don't mind that at all. And so that's who really this had to kind of look at it. Nike's entrenching themselves before anyone really sees that. Many of our people in my demographic think it's ridiculous, but the generations behind us that are aging into the spending bracket are totally okay with this. So, and I think, if you think about things like, Clonex, they have crazy innovations. You can buy a hoodie that you can have in real life that, through mixed reality lenses that will come from Apple, you'll actually see what I look like in the metaverse in the street. And then I'll have it in the metaverse as well. So you have this crossover thing that's going on that, the guys behind that are pretty visionary. You look at what's going on, with Fortnite and the kind of generation coming from there. And this plays right into a huge marketplace that's coming alive right now with the technology and with the demographic aging into the marketplace.
All right. We have a lot of representatives from the academia here, a lot of professors and lecturers from universities. How do you see the knowledge or the studying perspective of the metaverse for academia, for students, for this type of audience? Do you have a strong opinion on that, or can you share your thoughts maybe?
Are you asking me or some of the other folks here? I thought you were asking somebody else.
No, it was
myself. Okay. Yeah, academia, I think, is, it's obviously online school in the age of COVID became something we all had to get used to. I think academia, workplace productivity, stands to have meaningful gains if we see some kind of jumps in virtual reality, the ability to kind of maybe say stand in a room with you and pass over a screen that I'm looking at something, and we can have an interactive kind of education through virtual reality. I think that's very possible. And workplace productivity goes hand in hand with kind of education. I think if you have either one of those working, they'll both be working. But yeah, I see it as a thing. Virtual classrooms already are a thing. If you could actually, have a room full of, your virtual representatives like myself, whether you're a Bored Ape or a Clonex or, an Azuki, you could show up in a room full of, virtual versions of yourselves and very much interact, in a way that's for the younger generations, it's going to be totally acceptable ways of interacting. I mean, we come from a generation, many of us, where we'd never dreamed of talking to each other through a computer. But my son is in a generation where he's, spent through COVID in the last couple of years interacting primarily with everyone he knows around the planet in a geographic region he can't see them. And so this is the way he knows people. So this is going to be totally fine to meet your friends from Japan, Florida, and New York in a virtual classroom.
I think this is really important, what you said, and we all have been part of this, right? Maybe I would like to ask Professor Petrova if she have any specific question to you, because we're really honored to have you here. I mean, this is such an experience for everyone watching the conference. So Professor Petrova, if you'd like to ask something specific, please.
Not really ask, but I would also thank Gazonomics for joining us. Hope it's not our last meeting. I know he has many students people who follow him, but also students. So I hope it's our first, but maybe not last meeting online, or even why not in person if we are talking about Metaverse, but sometimes we meet people in person, face to face. So thank you again.
I appreciate you having me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. It was really a great pleasure to have you. And we will be collecting the questions from the audience. A lot of people were submitting questions through the platform of the event. And we will rely on you if you could answer the questions later. Thank you. I'm personally very impressed with all that have been shared with our audience. And I believe that all of our guests were also impressed to have Gazonomics here. Now, after the impressive kickoff of the conference, I would like to move on with the first speaker from the main program. Mr. Asen Asenov is the director of One Foundation for Culture and Arts. He is the producer of the international festivals, One Design Week, One Architecture Week, Melon Music Festival, Big Pools Dance Alliance European Association for Modern Dance, and international advisor of theater in Sao Paulo. He was the publisher of the iconic Bulgarian One magazine. Mr. Asenov, please.
I run a contemporary dance festival, and I work a lot connected to cultural strategies and politics. But for me, this project was a really big experience, and because I jumped to basically to support a friend who is the French artist Mitch Brezunek. He's based in Bulgaria for the last 8 years. And just because I was really fascinated from this idea, I decided to jump and to develop this project together with him as the cultural engineer behind the artist. So unfortunately, this became super big in our heads. But this what happened at the end is Ghost BG, which is artistic project by Mitch Brezunek. I will try to explain you a little bit about the project because I want to speak mostly about the cultural engineering behind. But what is Ghost? Actually, Ghost is an artistic project which transformed 12 out of 168 monuments of the Soviet Union Army based in the European Union. All of them unfortunately are based just in Bulgaria, 168 in 2022. So we're trying with this project to question ourselves what is going on our days in the territory of European Union, having in mind the war, what is going on in Ukraine, and to provoke all of us to think about our past and what we are facing today, especially in this super strange political situation now for Bulgaria. I feel really ashamed about the political position of Bulgaria, which is the only country in the European Union which didn't support Ukraine together with Hungary, but this is not my personal vision. So my personal vision is very connected with this project. Actually, he transformed 12 out of these 168 monuments through 3D animation. Of course, using the very important historical background written by Professor Kelbacheva, which is she's one of the most important history professors. And why 12? Because 12 are the stars at the flag of the European Union. And why through 3D animation? Because the artists asked already the Bulgarian Prime Minister to make the real intervention at the public space on one of those monuments, which is Alyosha in Plovdiv, which is actually named. We named the project with this project in Plovdiv because the transformation, the name of the work of the artist on this monument in Plovdiv is Ghost. That's why also this became the name of the project. So what we are trying to do with the project, basically, we are trying to use all the possible channels to present an art project. We organized an exhibition with which in a gallery space in Plovdiv, with which we launched the project. We asked the Bulgarian Prime Minister to give us permission to realize to make the physical realization of the Ghost in Plovdiv in 9th of May, which is the Day of Europe. The presentation of the project was 9th of September, which was the day when the Russian army occupied Bulgaria in 1944. So all the dates are connected with some historical important moments. But also we organized an online exhibition and we used 3D animation and VR, which is the next step of the project. It will be now on 9th of November. We'll launch the next step of the project with a VR exhibition in Sofia. And not at the end, as I told you, it's a big, important historical background behind the project to make the audience understanding more easier what we are trying to say with this project. But all of these things are connected at the end of the day to NFT, because all of these works we produced as NFTs. And this is just, these 12 monuments are just the first series of NFTs that we are going to launch. The next step is, as I mentioned, this VR project. Through this project, basically, you can enter the monument inside, and you can see what is going on in his stomach, in his heart, in his mind. So basically, it's a game through which we are trying also to educate the audience of the project about the real history of our country, because we are still facing a lot of fake news also connected with Bulgarian history. And now I want to share a few stuff connected to me personally as a producer of the project. With this project, actually, we are trying to make an experiment. Why? Just because with Ghost, we are trying to discover if contemporary art project can accumulate enough resources to support processes in regions or in small countries. So we are trying to discover if through these new technologies, if through NFTs, we can accumulate enough resources to support culture and to make culture independent. The goals of in this concrete project, Ghost is that all the incomes, 70% of the incomes, because with the 30% of the incomes, we will pay the team and we'll pay all the expenses connected to the project. But all the rest, which is 70% of the project, with this money, which will accumulate, we will support Ukrainian artists. We want to support cultural events in Ukraine immediately when this will be possible. And of course, we will try to support the Bulgarian independent cultural scene, because we are not in war, but officially, but basically the way of existing of the Bulgarian independent cultural scene is very close to war.
Thank you, Mr. Senov. Do you want to add something, or we're just on time? I'm looking on the clock here. These are your final words, I believe.
I just wanted to tell you that if you have time, because I didn't manage to tell you about the structure of the project, you can go on GOST.pg, you can go on projects, and the full explanation you can find there about the project, the main project, and all the small projects going around. Our main goal is to manage to cover Alyosha on the Day of Europe next May. And I hope that this experiment will be successful, so we can manage to accumulate resources to support our Ukrainian colleagues and the cultural scene in general there.
Thank you, Mr. Senov, for sharing about this interesting project combining culture, art, and new technologies. I'm personally very impressed. I would like to remind those of you who are following the conference online that you have the chance to submit your questions in the live chat, and we will be collecting the questions later, and they will be provided to the speakers of our conference. As well, the recording of the conference will be available after the event to anyone who misses and would have the chance to watch it. Our next speaker now is Professor Slavia Barlieva. She is here on the line with us. We will continue with art and culture. So Professor Slavia Barlieva is the Vice Director of the Cyrillo-Methodian Research Center at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences and member of the Management Board of Nasledstvo BG, Center of Excellence. And she will be speaking on the topic Heritage BG in the perspective of access to new audiences. Professor Barlieva, please.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank Professor Petrova for inviting me to this very interesting event. I'm staying very far away from the communication and media problems, being a researcher in medieval studies. But the topic of your conference is very important for us and for me, for us participant of the project Heritage BG. I'm engaged with. This research infrastructure is still under construction, but we are very optimistic about this future since it is created based on the powerful stuff. Please, could you go the previous slide? Next, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. This research infrastructure is still under construction, but we are very optimistic because this is created based on a powerful interdisciplinarity consortium, which partners are related to the study of the cultural and natural heritage also of Bulgaria, and they are related to its cataloging, socialization, and preservation. As partners under the leadership of the St. Clement Ohridsky University of Sofia, there are 4 universities in the Heritage BG, 7 research institutes of the Bulgarian Academy of Science, also the National Library and the Regional Museum of Sofia. Sometimes these two, how to say, these two variegated structure of our Center of Excellence initially caused bewilderment and even derision, because some could not explain to themselves an institution that combines art studies with geology, or spa and wellness programs with those for the study of medieval history and culture. Nevertheless, in the process of working on this, we have also passed the first 2 years of the process. Please, the next slide. The next slide, please. No. I have the fourth slide, the fourth one. Yes, this infrastructure had as its main goal to improve the research environment, the research quality, as well the marketing of the research outcomes in the area of the new technologies for the creative and recreational industries. But not only this, but also to development new technologies and products of needs of other economic sectors, for the education, for the public relation, for governmental and non-governmental organization, for the municipalities, for journalists, for different kind of audience. Please, the next slide. The main task of this research infrastructure should be developing independent fundamental research, also industrial research, experimental development, and large-scale dissemination of the results. The inclusion of the Center of Excellence in the European Science and the Innovation area is our big task for us. Please, the next one. And the main task is the discovering and popularizing cultural and natural wealth of Bulgaria. And we try to realize realizing new vision of transforming the cultural inheritance in research for creative and recreational industries. Selection, processing, description, and provision of free access to the Bulgarian cultural heritage in different formats is also very important for us. Please, the next one. We have here in this slide the expected results which are far for us in this moment, but it's really very, very important to establish the high-level research infrastructure and to have to be able to conduct the research according to the best standards and practices, and also to prepare young people, young students through inclusion in a real science and research. And of course, to build new specialized laboratories, physically laboratories for different research tasks. Please, the next one. These laboratories in the Center of Excellence, some of them are still executed and working. We have here the Digital Humanities Laboratory, Virtual Reality Laboratory, Integrational Portal, Virtual History of the Bulgarian Literature Laboratory, which is very important structure. Also, Digital Archive Center for Movable Cultural Heritage, and the virtual cluster name Cyril Methodicum. Please, the next one. Under the main task, we find the building of the integrational portal, which is under construction yet. It's there are plenty of digital repositories, databases, every kind of collection of digitalized objects which are not offered for the public access because of lack of organizing infrastructure and compatibility to each other. The integration portal will provide structured information for different kind of audience, because we have the task not only to provide the audience with different information, but also to educate this audience, these different audiences. Our goal is from maternity school children to the high-level state functionaries, from secondary school people to university doctoral students and professors, journalists, and other experts. So we hope this integration portal will integrate all those data we have now collected and structured, and provide them to in different formats for different audience. In the integration portal, we will find the next one, please.
You have 1 minute left, Professor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We have different full text editions, virtual exhibition, document archives, and all these things could be used for different audience, for the education of that audience, and for make our cultural heritage more popular and well known, not only in Bulgaria. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this impressive project, which is really important to the Bulgarian history. I'm sure that we'll be following questions to you. Now, in order to keep the timing of the conference, I would like to move to our next speaker. The next participant is actually the founder of the nonprofit organization, So Close, So Far, which was established in 2015 with the mission of realizing cultural and educational activities which connect the Bulgarian diaspora around the world with its roots. So our next speaker is Miss Irina Velkova. Please start with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Manuela. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. As Manuela just mentioned, my name is Irina Velkova, and I'm the founder and the president of the not-for-profit organization So Close, So Far. It is absolute my pleasure to be here today with you and to be able to share our fairly humble story, I should say, and also how we have utilized different communication channels and approaches to drive forward our agenda, and of course how we promote culture and art. If we can move to the next slide, please. And the next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so just before I dive into the nitty-gritty of the work we do and how we go about it, I'd just like to give you a few brief words about our organization and how it came about to exist. So as Manuel said, So Close, So Far was founded officially in 2015. However, we started our work, if you like, in 2012 on the basis of projects or different individual projects, and we have run a number of events since we started on that kind of a more project basis. We have a professional board of directors, which comprises 7 directors, including 2 qualified and very talented young curators, for which we are very grateful, and they're very critical for our work. I can't possibly describe how important they are. And again, the aim of the organization is broadly to promote Bulgarian artists who live and work abroad, introduce them to native audiences, particularly in Bulgaria, but also abroad, as well as link them with other institutions in order to, again, promote the Bulgarian culture and art. And that's mainly driven by our desire to be able to share with the world, if you like, the absolute immense talent we are blessed with across the globe. So our activity can be largely divided into three main work streams. So firstly, we organize large exhibitions inviting Bulgarian artists here at home in Bulgaria and introduce them to our local audiences. Secondly, we promote them via different cultural exchange channels. So, for example, collaborating with other international art institutions and therefore inviting international artists in Bulgaria, in exchange for which we promote Bulgarian artists abroad and their spaces. And thirdly, organizing and supporting individual exhibitions of Bulgarian artists at home in Bulgaria, but also abroad. I should say that since the start of our work, we have represented over 80 Bulgarian artists, which we consider a great success given how much the sector is actually in need of support, particularly. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the type of projects we organize in Bulgaria particularly varies significantly conceptually. So the first type of projects I mentioned is those that are basically home-based or Bulgaria-based. We normally have our signature exhibition called So Close So Far on annual basis, and we have run 5 editions of it so far. And that basically brings together in a common format the Bulgarian artists who are selected to participate under a common theme. And the reason I'm kind of trying to split the 3 different streams, if you like, of the work we do is because each one of it, of course, requires different communication channel, different marketing campaigns. So that's really important in the context of what we're talking about today. I guess what is really critical as well to mention here is that we run a very rigorous selection process for each of the exhibitions we organize. So, for example, at the start of every single signature exhibition, in this case, for example, we share the creative concept broadly with as many artists as possible. So we launch wide communication campaigns, for example, via all possible online, offline channels, social media, etc. So to make sure that the word is spread appropriately across all participants or potential participants. The next step, artists who would like to get involved in our projects send us a portfolio of their works, which they believe will be aligned to the creative concept we are advertising for a particular edition of the exhibition. And then at the final stage, there is a selection committee comprising our curators alongside other art experts who actually make the final selection or the final cut of artists who are to participate in that particular exhibition. This is following basically this relatively lengthy and I must say sometimes a very painful process. Artists could be quite difficult to manage sometimes, creative souls, not like us project managers sometimes. So it is a very kind of tough process, but it's really critical to make sure that we are consistent with it. And this is because as part of our projects, everything is usually covered for the artists who participate. So we normally pay for their logistics and their transportation expenses, which of course makes our exhibitions very competitive. So it ensures high quality, and that's why we do it. But it also means that we need to make sure we have a fair approach to all of the participants on a regular basis. Then if I talk briefly about some of the other projects that we do at home base, so we've organized some much more symbolic and thematic projects, for example, such as Vishwagelov's installation, which was inspired by the Cyrillic symbols. And it was great to see to hear what Professor Barlieva was saying, because that's really closely connected. And I must say it's a magical product. But again, it meant that because of this kind of theme around the Cyrillics and the symbols around that, we had a very different marketing approach and very different communication channels to use. Similarly, we have focused on themes such as exploring the concept of the contemporary woman, for example, nowadays, and organized a thematic exhibition combining 2 female artists who, although using opposing different means of expression, for example, particularly in terms of media, they complemented magically with each other to create a really good feeling of balance. And that's how we specifically created this exhibition around called Balance Point. So again, this was one specific project where we had to specifically target audience which is a little bit closer and aligned to the much more contemporary themes around equality in society and how we go about it as well, and how art, for example, plays into that. And again, another really interesting thematic kind of approach we've utilized was with our Direction North exhibition, for example, where we were showing Bulgarian artists who live and work in the Nordic countries and have been heavily influenced by the lifestyle and the value system there. And as we all know, the way of living, if you like, in the northern part of Europe differs significantly from the southern part, and that kind of shapes the art world in a very unique way. So I'm not going to go through each of those projects, but I just wanted to give you a flavor as to the variety of the work we introduce. And again, just to highlight the point that as a result requires the use of very different communication approaches. The selection of audiences varies, and how we reach to these audiences to ensure that our artists land their work with the most appropriate recipients, of course. If we move to the next slide. Thank you. I think I believe we have been really innovative in the work we do is in utilizing the cultural exchange channel, if you like, as a powerful means of communication and promotion of arts. So our first and grand project leveraging this concept was called Fragmented Stories, Sofia Berlin, and we saw its realization through joining fragments from 2 very different groups of artists to create one whole complete story. So we invited the Union of Berlin Artists, or representatives, if you like, from the Union of Berlin Artists to be presented to the Bulgarian art scene, and we showcased then Bulgarian artists at their home audience in Berlin. So this, of course, resulted in a very close relationship with our colleagues in Berlin, but of course, it helped immensely to create further bridges to promote our artists, and kind of created another communication channel which almost spread over time and consistently helped them throughout. Similarly, we have organized an exhibition of 2 Bulgarian artists to be presented in a gallery in Geneva, and this project was specifically targeting both the Bulgarian community in Switzerland, but also the local audience. And again, we have been expanding our channels for promoting those artists, trying to reach to all group of audiences. And then the next slide. The third stream that I kind of mentioned at the start is the fact that we also organize and support individual exhibitions of our artists and those who we work with. And here on the slide, we've only got a few of those, and I'm sure I've forgotten some of them, but I just wanted to mention some of the more recent ones. Not going to go through all of them individually at all, but just again, to use as an example, where the means of communication and channels for promotion take an entirely different directions. So, for example, in these instances, we're usually working with specific galleries. We leverage their networks and regular audiences, as well as looking to promote certain artists. And then, of course, that means that we also support them when it comes to actual media involvement, for example, specific individual meetings that may be requested, as well as the overall promotion. Now, I think we are just about the end of my presentation, and I don't want to take any of time my fellow panelists, but I guess just as a final note, if we can move to the next slide, is just to mention that a number of our artists who we have been working with have now entered the NFT space. Of course, you won't be surprised to hear that. So if I'm honest, I'm really eager to see where this is going and whether we have an opportunity to actually start thinking of organizing projects which are in the NFT space and how we go about it. I don't know how we go about Q&A sessions. If there are any burning questions, I'm happy to answer them now. But other than that, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Velkova. We will be taking the questions offline, and we will absolutely share the questions with you. Thanks for making it possible to connect with us from London with your busy agenda. It was very impressive, and the project is really interesting. I am personally connected to this project, so thanks one more time. Now we will be moving back to the Metaverse topic. I would like to introduce Dr. Alexander Durchev, who is the Chief Executive Officer of All Channels Communication Group, who will be presenting the results of a very interesting research on the Metaverse, and it's called Beta Metaverse. Dr. Durchev, if you're on the line, please join us.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, Manuela. Thank you very much for the invitation. Hello, everyone. I know that this topic is quite abstract and a little bit crazy, but I'm really pleased to present this research that we conducted together with our partners from Bluepoint. Next slide, please. I will repeat again. I'm Alexander Durchev. I'm CEO of All Channels Communication. I'm also professor in Sofia University and American University. And because I'm not sure how can I fit to 10 minutes, so I'll try to be a little bit more brief. So next slide, please. Well, for all of you who are wondering what Metaverse is, I'll say a few words. So, may I ask you just to open the animations, because I didn't know that I will not control it.
I'm not controlling the presentation, but the technical team at the background, you can just share next slide or.
Okay, because yeah, okay, please, one more time. So, okay, that's fine now. So, what is Metaverse? The Metaverse is 3D collective virtual space created by the convergence of virtually enhanced physical and digital reality. It means that it's not only digitally driven, but also is physical, and this is the merge between these both. So it's also independent virtual, so it represents virtual economy, which means that it opens lots of opportunities for all of us to do our communication and trade campaigns there, and that's why it's so important. So it's interesting because everyone has an avatar there, so and everyone could choose its own favorite digital environment. And it's not, it cannot exist without different gadgets and different technological trends, like the one that you can read at the screen, which are quite popular nowadays, like augmented reality, head-mounted displays, artificial intelligence, AR, Internet of Things, 5G, so all these things which we discussed in the last few years, all together could enhance the opportunity for the Metaverse to exist. So Metaverse, which is something that I should underline, is not owned by a single vendor. So when Facebook rebranded Meta, it doesn't mean that they own this environment. It's much bigger than this company itself. And in fact, the death of Metaverse, which were announced recently, is exaggerated. So I believe that we are in the very beginning, unfortunately or fortunately, in the development of this new environment, which could be very important for our business. Next slide, please. Okay, Metaverse started as a game platforms. So many game platforms, in fact, attract many young people and not so young, and help them to buy virtual services, virtual goods, to exchange them, and the most importantly is to transfer them from one platform to the others. Next slide, please. But it's not only about games, but it's also about working process, which is one of the most important features of the Metaverse. So most of the big companies now introduced already better ways to help us interact and to have more immersive experience, quite different than the one that we have in this very moment. And to exchange our ideas, having even more physical feelings between the different participants. So it's not only game, it's also a way of working. So this is something what Metaverse might change in the future. The next slide, please. Well, to wrap up, it is immersive environment that will change the way we socialize, the way we study and work. And there is a promise that it won't be another reality that will compensate something, but it will be a tool that will help us to have more human relations, more human relationship between us, to have more empathy and more intimacy while we're communicating virtually, not physically. So, and it will give a chance to have these physical experiences that we lack even now when we have this Zoom conference here. The next slide, please. So, why this is important for us? Because the Metaverse is not another communication channel. So it's an ecosystem of tools, channels, approaches that will help us to engage and activate the consumers. And this is our job, in fact. So being in communication business, this is one of the most important things. And it will also ensure a new market and new horizons for the brands at the market. And one more, please. So, and it's an opportunity for all of us. It's an opportunity that will give new horizons for the communication business, not only for the brands. Next slide, please. And the next one. Are we ready? You can read it. And now I will jump directly in some of the highlights from the research. So how many people in Bulgaria, because this is research that we've made in Bulgaria, are well informed about the Metaverse? So we researched two different target audiences. The first one is the millennials, not so young people, which are below my age, around 30s, 30 something. And the Generation Z, people which are now above 18 and could choose what to buy and what to consume. So may I ask you to reveal, it's enough. So almost 50% from Generation Z is very well informed about the Metaverse, and almost 1/3 from the millennials. Next slide, please. So just to know what is the base that we work with. So there is still a very few of them which already have registration in one of the platforms, and you can see the numbers. They are around 3.7 and 3.5 for both the research audiences. Next slide, please. But something that we should stress on is that almost 30% from the millennials are interested to join, and almost 50% from the Z generation has thoughts about joining this environment. The next one. So there is a very weak resistance, I would say, to join this environment. Below 10% for the Generation Z and below 20% for the millennials. The next, please. And before going on, before proceeding with what are our expectations, we should consider that we already get used to work digitally and to spend more time in front of our computer and to spend more time on socializing there and work there. So please, the next slide. So what do we expect from the Metaverse? So the technology will give me an opportunity for a distant physical contact. You can see the numbers. This is the expectation of the consumers, but not the promise of the platform. So we expect that it will give us more options for close to the physical contact, not only for having this talking head experience that we have even in the moment. The next one is this technology, the virtual reality will help me to overcome the lack of physical contact, and we can see that in fact the expectations are quite high. And also the technologies that are in preparation even now from one of the biggest technological companies are promising such thing. I have two examples. I'm not sure that we'll have time to take a look at them, but you can find them in the presentation. The next slide. I don't know, just advise me if we have 2 minutes in order to take a look at it.
We have a few more minutes. Yeah, we have 3 minutes, let's say. Yeah.
Let's see this one, but maybe we can stop it in the middle. Okay, it doesn't work. But in these two examples, okay, a little bit like this. In these two examples, you'll see really interesting technologies which Google and Microsoft are preparing in order to help us have more immersive digital experience, which is really mind-blowing and is changing the way we consume digital content, giving us almost physical experience and physical feelings by communicating with our relatives, our colleagues, our students. And yeah, if you have time, take a look at them after the presentation. The next slide, please. So, what we expect more is experience that we'll not have in the real world. So things that it's very difficult to have in the life we live in. So, and the second one, as an expectation, is more effective communication, which is promising for all of the professors in the university, for companies which are working distantly with their employees. So it's something that would help all of us to be more efficient while we're sharing information with different stakeholders. The next slide, please. Yeah, to develop my skills more effectively. So you can see from the data that Generation Z is more optimistic about these technologies, but the millennials are also very much into this and very receptive and very open to experience the new technologies. And the next one, yeah, it will help me to escape from the reality. These are some of the disturbing data that we've received, and to be different from what I am in the real world. So our expectation as a consumers in some of the cases are to have something that might give us an experience which will distance us from our daily problems, to give us some feelings which we cannot experience in the real world. And this is also a sign for us as a communication experts or professors, how we can use them in the future, because the future will come quite soon, how we can use all these technologies in order to have better contact with our stakeholders. The next slide. So it's also good to know that 9 from 10 people from the research audience, in fact, already were at Metaverse events. And the Metaverse events, they soar during the pandemic. And the next slide shows one of the most, how to say, populous one of the most visited one, that in fact was visited by almost 10 million people simultaneously, which really shows the opportunity that Metaverse platforms are giving for all of us in order to host events, to host lectures, or even to have some presentations of products or services. So the next slide, or maybe this is the information about the Fortnite Marshmallow event. So you can see the receptivity of the two target audiences. 90% from the Z generation would take part in the Metaverse entertainment event, and 82 from the millennials are also very open to be part of such experience. On the next slide, you'll see, in fact, that almost 1/4 from the audience, from the both target audiences, are very open even to participate in events hosted by companies and to participate in such promotional events, buying something. The next slide. Yeah, these are the numbers that show how many of us would buy virtual products of their favorite brands. So still very low for Bulgaria, but already high for the States and coming in Europe. So the games, I mentioned them in the very beginning, they are the front entrance to the Metaverse. The gamification of the Metaverse is very important for this industry in order to penetrate in the society and to get popular. On the next slide, you will see, in fact, the number of people which play video games, which are quite high. So it was quite surprising for me as well to see that 44% from the millennials, which already have kids, families, play games every day, and 55% from the Z generation are also very active gamers. The next slide. Yeah.
We have a few minutes left. Sorry for interrupting.
So you can see almost every day, these are the numbers for the hardcore gamers. Okay, next slide. And you can see here how many of us from this generation is ready to buy products. 80% versus 69, which is quite high for the both target audiences. The next one. Some examples of products that you can buy, and there is Hermes Bailey Birkin on your right upper part, a bag, virtual bag, which was sold for $23,000, which is absolutely crazy. Next slide. And to wrap up, the expectations of all of us is to Metaverse to change, to exchange the present social media and to be the new social media environment. And you can see the numbers of people which are quite excited to be part of this virtual world, which are not, which are willing to be part of it. The next slide, and give me a sign when I should stop. You can see, yeah. So let's wrap it up here. I have a few slides, but I will stop. So our social and work habits have changed, which is a good reason for the Metaverse to become part of our life. Again, for good or bad, I cannot judge here. So we're quite engaged with our mobile phones and with our social medias, which will distract our attention, and the Metaverse will be the next level of such an engagement and distraction of our attention, but this is something which might happen very soon. You can see that 66% from the Americans are quite positive, and the numbers for Bulgaria are not very far from this acceptance. Generation Z is coming in fast there. Millennials are catching up, and as you can see, we didn't research Generation Alpha, which are still kids and which spend a big part of their spare time in video games and in the Metaverse platforms that you already saw here. And unfortunately, or fortunately, again, change always, please, the previous slide, yeah, always succeed. And we should just take this choice, or to choose if we can be part of it or just to deny it. What's next will be next time, because maybe we are out of time. But there are many ethical questions that are popping up. Many questions about privacy, about our attention, about our time which is spent in something which is virtual, about the new business model. So there are quite many questions that we should answer, and maybe we'll try to regulate this in the future. But for now, it's a big experiment that we should understand better in order to manage to live with it. Thank you very much for your attention. You can find the whole research on our website, and I will send it to Manuela in order to share it with you.
Thank you, Dr. Durchev. This was my question, actually, where we can find the research, because it's so interesting, and you bring the important question that the good data allows organizations to establish baselines, which is very important for the business. But now we need to move on with art and cultural projects. And I would like to go back to art and culture and to give the floor to another European country. So we are moving now to Germany, actually, from where Dr. Snežanka Bauer will connect directly from Frankfurt. She's leading the visual art section at the Department for Culture at the city of Frankfurt. Dr. Bauer, please.
Hello to everybody. I just first would like to thank Professor Teodora Petrova for inviting me, and hello to all the whole audience. Maybe my English is not the best one after I heard everybody talking in this way. I'm going to talk to inform you about a project that I was the project manager. It was a cultural project of the city of Frankfurt for commemorizing the victims of a concentration camp here in Frankfurt, about who or which probably very few knew about its existence. It was at the end of 1944 till March 45 existing here in Frankfurt. So this art project was realized, of course, as you see on the picture, by such cloth pieces which were bound on all the trees, or nearly all the trees in the center of Frankfurt. It could exist just only because it was of a combination of real analog pieces and a virtual information in the, well, I wouldn't say meta space, but in the through internet, probably in many places, not only in Frankfurt, but around Frankfurt, around the world, I hope. So can we go to the next slide, please? I just want to inform you how it functioned. Yeah, it is the artist is called Stephanie Gross, and it was, please, the next one. It was about a concentration camp, so we don't see really everything. It was placed on the. We don't see really the picture we should see. Okay. Here you see how it functions. Can you go one picture back, just to show the map? No, it's not what we should see. Okay, so the artist made an invitation through the internet by people. Please, the next slide. By all. Because the members who had been in this concentration camp had been, one supposes, about 1,600. So these cloths were exactly 1,600, and they had to be placed on 1,600 trees. That means many people had to come together. So she asked people through internet, through the virtual space, to come and to help to put these cloth pieces on the trees. The most important probably is because this project was organized, initiated to commemorate these victims and to inform public about the existence of this concentration camp, for really few knew about this before this art project. And actually commemorizing all what had happened in the past started not with the real project you see on this picture, but it started when information was put in internet and people could read around what is going to be. Please, next picture. You see there were lots of people helping. Please, next one. There were in the center of Frankfurt on probably all trees for a whole year to be seen these pieces of cloth. Next picture. And what you see now on this piece of paper is what the artist had put in internet and people had printed it, how which tree is to be used, and actually they all knew through internet how to work, where to go, to which tree, and what kind of names they should put in. Probably I should say now, because you can read a name, most of the victims were captured through Nazi Germans, through they came from the Warsaw uprising, and probably it was a monstrous organization of the big concentration camp, the center in Hessen, Nassau at that time, called, oh my God, I cannot tell you the name of this concentration. Oh. I will commemorate it and I will tell you. In Frankfurt, it was called Katzbach, and this concentration camp probably was in Adlerwerke. These are is a factory producing the first automobiles in Germany, and later on it produced typing machines and bicycles. Next picture. What is most important, you see here remains of these factories. Next picture, please. It is the center of Frankfurt, and it is a long pedestrian zone, a street, the shopping mall of Frankfurt, and there were placed all these cloth pieces. So it is has been an analog project. It was actual an art of conceptual art combination in combination with performance art, but the results were not by placing these objects on the trees, but they started in advance giving information in this virtual space internet. Next picture. Next picture. I just wanted now to show you exactly how it looked like when people were invited to come and to help, because there were so many spaces, so many places to be covered with these cloth pieces. And you see the number of trees that had to be covered. And next, please, picture, please. Yeah, you see all the places as well. So people seeing these mapping of the city, seeing all the trees that have to be covered with a cloth understood about the huge number of prisoners that had been in the concentration camp. So this combination of analog and of virtual information helped by means of commemorizing something from the past, just to think about what we should do or not do and how to act in times when we have again a very difficult situation with this war. So I think it is very important to start such projects, because this project was realized in 2015, and bit by bit now there is a real kind of museum for commemorizing the victims. It was materialized in the course of several years, and everybody can go now. It is in the very building of these Adlerwerke, of the factories. So it is very important for everybody seeing these these victims, knowing about them, that it is something that we have to avoid for the future. And I have seen a very, very good title of somebody who is to speak just not after me, but later, Mr. Tomasz Grasiewicz. And his title is Blending Past and Present. Of course, not in Frankfurt, but in Sosnowiec. But I thought probably this title could be used as well for this project, because looking back is actually blending the past and the future now in the present. And I thank you, because we have all to commemorate what has happened and try to make everything be peaceful. And I thank you for the attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bauer. It was very interesting, and thank you for presenting the project. Actually, I think that we also create a network of connections here between all the speakers. So exchanging those experience of culture, art, and communication, it's really important. I would like to move on now with the next speaker. So we are moving now from Germany to Italy. And we have someone special who will be speaking on cinema. I would like to introduce Mr. Ferdinando Cabrini, who is a contract teacher at the UNITU, Torino University, and member of the team of Extra Campus TV, the Torino University television, founded in 2003, to speak about cinema and metaverse. Very interesting. Dear Mr. Cabrini, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manuela. And thank you to Deodora Petrova that invited me again to take part in this. It's a really good meeting, not conversation only, because it's a new ground that we are exploring now about metaverse. I would like to establish connection between cinema and metaverse and the university, because I suppose it is quite interesting. So my first slide is a huge room to work, but not only huge room to work, but only to live, to establish connection, to have more experience, and to emotionate in some way. We can move to the second. Yeah, the metaverse is in some way a new Alibaba, new cave with all riches are inside. And I'm moving back to the cinema, because since its inception, cinema has become a global entertainment. Cinema, unlike television, has always introduced the audiences into a virtual space. This is in some way is connected with it's a beginning of a new way to experience your own life. Cinema creates emotions with an extraordinary power to polarize audiences. Each of us has at least one film to which we owe this involvement. For instance, mine was Blade Runner in some way. The new hardware and software technology mentioned, that not the previous speakers, but the previous before the last, it's mentioned the virtual reality, in artificial intelligence, and many other new software and overall hardware that will be used. In that way, I can suggest you to think to Matrix movie. The metaverse now we stand at the threshold of a new transition. The metaverse is a space populated by many pretenders, none of whom have the dowry to claim the princess as their bride. I personally belong to one group of pretenders right now. And I am back to the metaverse. In order to enter to the Alibaba new cave, you need a password, the magic password. And if you remember the Alibaba and the 40 teeth, it's open sesame. But now I would like to show you which could be a new image of Alibaba cave. Can you move to the next slides? This is a slide of a permanent virtual space in Switzerland. If you would like to visit this kind of fair, it's where many different kind of stuff are sold, and with a very special way to see, you can move around and you can to see very close and in a very cheap way what you can visit and eventually to buy, or maybe to have another visit here. This is a permanent fair is in the virtual space. This is a metaverse example. I'm not fan of one use or maybe another one. That doesn't matter anyway. If you forward to the next one, it's a metaverse. You can be one of these guys and then women visiting with your avatar, because you have, in order to visit and to live metaverse, you have been to change your shape, and then you have to be an avatar. And this is a complication about different kind of software and hardware, because you can meet somebody else, somebody other, have a very nice meeting like ours that we are now having. But your discussion, your front discussion, it's not that picture that you have, but it's an avatar with in some way three dimension that you can live in there. The player and the competitors of this new space, just the more well-known, it's Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, or maybe Microsoft with Satya Nadella, or maybe Meta platform, or maybe during the last period, a very high number of South Korean firms. And in fact, the rules of the new business is important. Yeah, because the question is, which kind of rules? It was mentioned before that the other speakers, which kind of rules we have to respect in this kind of a new space. I just remind you that about the space adventure, some of scholars, and they decided to write a new right of space. Otherwise, some adventures, some events, or some products as ISS, International Space Platform, we cannot be used without any respect and with the new rights, new law. I'm just, if please, you can go with the last slides. Yeah. I'm introduce you why the university in Metaverse. I am supposing that if business stay on the remain just business, it's the new situation is a lack of rules, lack of respect, and it's quite difficult to continue in this situation, because it's a problem, a very big problem of the new rules on the rights, but also for the new ethics. Just because, I'm just remind you one other example. Historically, we know, all of us read.
Ferdinando, I'm sorry to interrupting you, but I just received a sign that we are going over time.
I am closing in a minute. Thank you. Okay. If you've seen Alice in Wonderland, and the Metaverse is described by Lewis Carroll, Alice enter and get in and got out in a very paradoxical world. And this is one of the ways that Lewis Carroll tried to explain what it was a physics, and trying to explain this kind of new word he invented. Okay. And just the Metaverse is a space, cultural, artistic, creative, that we are building belong to us. The university task, meanwhile, is to make this knowledge share across culture and businesses, territories, and to discuss which ethic to respond to knowledge, shift to the boundaries to the real world and some behavior, previously forbidden, and now accepted. I am referring to, for instance, for some rules that we are respecting before in medicine, or maybe procreation and law. This is the combining of these three words. Cinema, that's one was on the complex word that's trying to illustrate and then shown. Metaverse, a new one that you have to discover, but not yet, we are not ready to. And the university that it was asked to not become a judge, but in the way that starting to decide the rules.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very interesting, and especially the perspective, cinema and Metaverse. We have to speed up here, and I will be very strict on the timing from now on. So I'm moving directly to Poland now with our next speaker. This is Mr. Tomasz Szolewicz, and he is our next speaker, as I already shared, Deputy Head of the Media Communications Center at the University of Silesia in Katowice. He will speak about time windows, blending past and present in Sosnowiec. Tomasz, please.
Thank you very much, Manuela. I would also like to thank Teodora Petrova for inviting me, and to you, Manuela, for having me, even though I was post deadline. And I also, just to start with, I want to thank Dr. Bauer for referring directly to my presentation, because immediately when she started hers, I saw the connection, because our project is also connected with the urban space, with making people aware of the past. So yes, and I hope that we are going to establish some kind of connection and contact after the conference. So as Manuela mentioned, I work at the University of Silesia in Katowice, but on top of that, I'm also part of a group called I Like Zagłębie, which is dedicated to preserving the history and heritage of Zagłębie Dąbrowskie, a region in Poland. We are based in Sosnowiec, which is the biggest city of Zagłębie Dąbrowskie. We have already done a couple of exhibitions and wrote a number of guidebooks, the latest of which was a guidebook to Jewish heritage in Sosnowiec, because you need to know that Sosnowiec was very much a Jewish city before the war. And then, as we all know, the Second World War happened, and they were all gone, or most of them were gone. So immediately before the war, there were 28,000 Jews in Sosnowiec. Sosnowiec is located only 40 kilometers away from Auschwitz, so you can guess what happened to them. So once we wrote the guidebook about the Jewish heritage in Sosnowiec, we thought about extending it with something that will be visually attractive and that we will be able to put inside the space of the city, so that, you know, common passersby just walk on the street and they can have a look at something that is eye-catching, and then perhaps read a little bit about the history, look at the photo, see the connection between the past and present. So we decided to choose a number of archival photos and then recreate them in exactly the same location, showing the modern city. It wasn't an easy task because Sosnowiec, just like many other cities around the world, has changed a lot throughout the years. But after a while, we managed to find 12 such locations, and we did this 12 photo blends. The first of them you can see right now on the slide. This is the Kerta Street in the center of Sosnowiec. So on the right side, you see the archival part of the photo, which is turn of the 19th century, and on the left is the present day Sosnowiec. Somewhere in the middle here stood the great synagogue of Sosnowiec that was burned at the beginning of the war by the Nazis in September 1939. Next slide, please. Okay, and here you see another one. We called this project Time Windows because we thought that this is a kind of, this photo blend is a kind of a window through which you can look into the past. Here you can see 3 Maja Street, translates to the 3rd of May Street. That's one of the main streets in Sosnowiec. In fact, the first street in Sosnowiec that was created. Sosnowiec is a very young city. It only became a city in 1902, and Jews played a very important part in it. Most of the houses that you can see in the picture were built and owned by Jews, and amazingly they still stand here until today. You can see both the elements of the past and the present. You can see this black and white part of the photo. So there was a garden in front of every house 120 years ago. Of course, there are no gardens right now. The street is much wider, and the cars, which you can see in the photo blend, they are moving both directions. And I also want to tell you that this postcard is the evidence of how multicultural my city used to be back in the past. Sosnowiec was at the Russian-German border. There was no Poland at that time. So Sosnowiec was part of the Russian Empire, but only 1 kilometer away from there was the border with Germany. And you can see that this postcard, it was written in 3 languages. You have an inscription in Russian on the left, Polish in the middle, and then German, Hauptstraße, on the right. So this photo was technically very hard to recreate because the original archival photo was taken from a building which was opposite, and right now there is no building. So we had to use a drone to have the new photo taken from exactly the same location. Next slide, please. This is Targowa Street in the center of Sosnowiec. Again, one of the oldest streets in Sosnowiec, and one that, again, amazingly still stands as it was many years ago, which helped us a lot in recreating it. So the archival part of the photo, the old part of the photo, you can see cobblestone, you can see an old car in the background, and of course many carts, probably with coal or something like this. On the right side, you can see the modern day pavement, which transforms gently and smoothly into the old cobblestone. And of course, the thing that probably strikes us most is this man, the bearded man in the hat in the front. And amazingly, he is very similar to a popular writer from Sosnowiec. So people right now accuse him of time traveling when they saw him. Okay, next slide, please. And right now we are moving on to the sad and tragic days of the Second World War. This photo was taken in the center of Sosnowiec on the corner of Modrzejowska and Targowa streets, the very center of Sosnowiec. This house on the corner is one of the biggest in the center of my city. Before the war, it used to belong to a famous rabbi from Sosnowiec. He was a very wise man, but he was also a successful businessman. And then during the war, this building became the headquarters of the Judenrat, the wartime Jewish council. But as you can see on the corner was a shop, a Jewish shop, because just like throughout Nazi-occupied Poland, Jewish shops had to be labeled with the Star of David, which is shown here. And we just contrasted it with the present day photo. So on the left side of the photo, you can see people from Sosnowiec in 2021. And then on the right, we see this Jewish shop and also Jews wearing armbands that they were forced to do throughout the war. And the next slide, please.
Tomasz, I will give you 1 more minute. Sorry for interrupting you. Yeah.
I thought I had 10. Okay. Okay. So the last photo from the war, it shows a group of Jewish laborers, forced laborers, against the post office building, which still stands there. And what is especially striking about this photo is if you look closely, what they are holding in their hands is a flag with a swastika. So they are probably about to put it up on a stand somewhere. They are supervised by probably a German supervisor. And so 1 more blend. And on to the next slide. I'll just cut it shortly. I would like to say thank you very much for your attention. We have 1 more photo blend here to show you the courtyard of on Modrzejowska Street that used to be a commercial area, and it is still a commercial area, but slightly different. If you want to keep in touch, you can email me. And thank you very much for your attention. That's it.
Thank you so much, Tomasz. I'm sorry 1 more time for interrupting you. But this is really important project, and I hope that we will be able to share the link to the project or any public sources of information, and our guests and participants could learn more. I would like to make a small change here in the program. We will be moving now with Professor Maria Bakardzieva from Canada. She will be connecting and speaking on digital media and citizen political engagement, which is really in line with the previous topics, and changing practices of participation and activism. Professor Bakardzieva is chair in communication and media studies in the Department of Communication, Media and Film in the University of Calgary in Canada. Hello, Professor Bakardzieva, the floor is yours.
Hello, Manuela. Hello to the whole audience. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this great event. So visually appealing and picturesque and such interesting intellectual projects, I'm happy to be included. So my presentation today should be short. I only have 5 minutes, so excuse me if I speak a bit too fast. I am trying to cover more ground. I will be talking about the results of a project that we carried out with 3 Swedish colleagues, which is reflected in this book, Digital Media and the Dynamics of Civil Society, Retooling Citizenship in New EU Democracies. In that project, we wanted to find out whether and how digital media contribute to the retooling and potential strengthening of civil society under the specific historical conditions of evolving democracy in Eastern Europe. We all know that digital media have proven themselves as means facilitating protest and civic grassroots engagement in politics and social affairs across the world. In Eastern Europe, on the other hand, the notion of civil society has always been a very important notion ever since the revolutions in 1989. So we've always asked ourselves, is that society growing? Is civil society getting stronger in Eastern Europe? So our chance with this project was to see if digital media are helping toward that growth and strengthening of civil civil society. However, we wanted to formulate civil society not just as protest, not narrowly as sometimes it has been considered, but we wanted to ask about the increase of its democratic quality. So does it manage to attract more people, not just those who are labeled as activists, but more ordinary citizens, to be included, to be engaged and participate in with even small acts, small gestures. So we also wanted to see how that process evolves in different points of the East European region, and that's why we chose Bulgaria and Estonia as two countries that and societies that both have overlapping features, but have diverged in their economic and political development in recent years. I probably have used most of my time already because 5 minutes is not much, but a couple of observations that I want to quickly share with you. So first of all, through a survey representative for the two nations, one in each country, we got to chart a spectrum of levels of civic engagement that went from unengaged or apathetic citizens to people who were moderately engaged, we call them occasional participants, to active citizens or regular participants in public and political events and in the affairs of NGOs. So the so-called acts of engagement that we used as indicators for these different degrees of engagement included signing a petition online, signing a petition offline, starting an online group in social media network, joining an online group in a social media network, or taking part in offline civic mobilization, organizing offline mobilization, or taking part in the events and activities organized by civil society organizations, either offline or online. We asked people how often they participated in such events, how often they performed such activities in the past 12 months. And on this basis, we constructed our typology. So one interesting thing that came out of it, among many others, was that digital media play a critical part in the activities of those who are more engaged. In the groups that we labeled as occasional participants and regular participants, the use of digital media was much higher than among the unengaged citizens. They also use digital media in different ways. They looked for news and trusted news coming through digital media in a higher degree. On the dichotomy that has emerged in the literature between online participation that some have labeled as slacktivism or clicktivism and offline participation, we actually found that most of the active people combine these two modes, and there is no point, that makes no sense to draw a strict boundary between them. The occasional participants, on the other hand, did use forms of exclusively online engagement more frequently. However, in that case, we found that groups of people, women, young citizens, were more inclined to turn to these media in the early stages of their participation in civil society. So we thought that online media for that group had a role as priming factors, as factors that broke down the barrier between the individual lives, private lives of citizens, and the affairs of the police and the activities of civil society organizations. As far as activism proper goes, we interviewed a large number of people who did consider themselves activists and or were working for formal NGOs in both countries. So from these long interviews, what we gathered was that these groups have made digital media a critical resource for their self-presentation, for their efforts to attract more participants, more supporters. And something very interesting that came up was that there was a variety in both countries of non-formal, self-organized, spontaneously formed civic groups around issues for whom digital media offered a very important space to get together, to recognize each other, to share their concern for certain issues. So this issue-centered group used digital media for practically everything they did, from organizing protests to distributing daily practical work, such as checking regulations, legal documents, writing proposals for the authorities, and so on. And also through digital media, through mutual syndication, through interlocking, mailing lists, such spontaneous and informal groups communicated and interacted regularly and very effectively with the formal NGOs, so that both types of organizations gained from that relationship. The formal NGOs provided expertise and sometimes substantive help to the grassroots spontaneous groups, and those groups, for their part, joined NGOs in their campaigns and provided support and more participants.
Professor Bukarjieva, I have to interrupt you. I'm really sorry about that. But we are going over time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just one more minute so that the picture does not look that rosy and probably recognizable from what we have read in the literature. Two things that stood out was the continuing importance of traditional media, of mainstream media, in bringing civic concerns to a broader public, which in Bulgaria met with serious resistance and, in fact, with hostile publications in the mass media that undermined the authority and legitimacy of activist groups, which made their work and life in Bulgaria quite difficult, which was not observed in Estonia. We also found during our project period of data collection how uncivil or illiberal groups use also very effectively digital media to organize people around ideas that were not really that characteristic of civil society. So our overall conclusion is that things go in both directions, and that civil society becomes prone to getting more fragmented, and the picture is really complex. It is going to be wrong to come up with this one overarching conclusion, but in fact, much more work and attention to these details is needed. So thank you, and sorry for being for taking long.
No, this is
thank
a great
everyone.
overview. Thank you for sharing, and we will be moving directly to the next presenter now. I would like to give the floor to Arkady Sharkov, who is a PhD candidate at the Faculty of Journalism and Mass Communication in the Sofia University. He is healthcare consultant and recently appointed as an advisor of the Ministry of Health in Bulgaria. So, Mr. Sharkov, it's your turn now. Thanks for waiting and apologize for delay.
No problem. Good evening to everyone, and happy to be here, and thanks for the invitation as well. So, in brevi, so to be brief, because sadly I have other appointments afterwards, but let's continue. So until the moment I heard most of the presentations talking about sufficiency information, different groups using the information for different kinds of course malpractices, etc., and also generational shifts, which is very important. So I'll probably say something that is already said, but repetita juvem in Latin means it needs to be repeated. It is obligatory to be repeated in order to be understood. So, over-sufficiency of information and its externalities, and the negative externalities of information overload. Of course, you all know we live in a digital age. We have different sources of information. Alas, they're too much. At some point, the pipeline gets clogged, and at that moment, no more information can pass to the right recipients. And this, of course, it is used by different groups in order to push different ideas and agenda, because they're easy to pass when the information is too much to understand, to comprehend. So can I have the next slide, please? Information epidemic. You're very, how should I say, you very well recognize the epidemic since the last 2 years. And of course, infodemic was mixed, and it was used for the past couple of years as a term for a malpractice, especially in the field of the COVID epidemic. And of course, as you know, it's early 21st century, blend of information and epidemic. It could be used for good. It could be also used for bad things in terms of dealing with different kinds of interest groups. But of course, you know that the interest is not always unified into the right direction. So infodemic as a term, of course, arose for the past couple of years, but actually we have it since we have the experiment with big data. With big data analysis, first it was used by for the presidential race in the USA in 2008, and then repeated in 2012. Then it was again used in 2016 for the Brexit, and also for the Trump elections. So infodemic can be used both for by both parties, if we speak in American terms. It depends what kind of agenda you want to push forward. Since you have enough information to gather, and then to realize that the simple messages are easy to push forward, and the most more complex ones are, of course, stay in the back. Of course, we speak about loud voices as well. Please, can I have the next slide? So, false information and its branches. As you very well know, it has the false information have certain branches, especially in the online field. If we speak about the intent, we speak about misinformation, which are urban legends. They are very well known in Bulgaria because they're used typically on, especially in the social media like Facebook, which is used by the generation of the baby boomers, partly by Generation X, and less by the millennials, and of course the Generation Z. The Alpha generation is still not actively using and participating in the conversations online. Disinformation, fake news. Fake news, of course, also sadly are very well known in Bulgaria as a representative outcome out of not only the social media, but also some of the, wouldn't say national media, but online media, and it's easy to spread around because the algorithm in most of social media, especially in Facebook, it is based upon spreading and sharing. And sadly, especially in times of pandemics, epidemics, financial crisis, inflation, all kinds of negative externalities of the outside world, especially economic ones, it is easier and easier when we speak about the pyramid of Maslow to pass. If we speak about knowledge, this is the opinion-based false information, which are the fake reviews, and also the fact-based, which are the hoax. When we speak about those, especially for the past couple of months, we see them connected with the war in Ukraine, the fact-based hoaxes, because during war, especially if we do a competitive analysis with war before, especially wars like this, which is especially with the sorry, I forgot the term. I'm trying to think fast, and my mouth and my brain doesn't work like that. especially when you speak about the new kinds of media which are used for the past couple of months since the war started, which is not actually social media in terms of Facebook, which is the public field. More or less, people tend to choose, and soon analysis that we're doing is going to arise. People tend to choose directly media such as Telegram, which is also becoming a source of information, Viber and WhatsApp groups, which are becoming more and more bigger source for targeted type of information. People want to choose information in which they believe. This is part of the fact-based hoaxes. People want to believe, for some of the population want to believe in hoaxes, and they want to satisfy only with this information. They want to be in their bubble where they feel certain about their opinion, or where their opinion is not challenged. So more and more you see this, especially in times of economic crisis, which are probably we're going to be a bystander, or of course an active participant in the next couple of years. And it can be easily compared to the times of the Weimar Republic, where fact-based hoaxes were spread around in leaflets. So this is another comparative analysis which I am going to use in my PhD thesis, historical comparison of fact-based hoaxes. So please, can I have the next slide? Information pollution. So the different forms of information pollution that typically occur. You know about misinformation, you know about disinformation. Rarely we speak about malinformation, especially when we speak about the COVID epidemic. Not to use vaccines or not to participate in public checkups. This was information that led to negative externalities such as more deaths and, of course, more sickness, more morbidity spread around. The disinformation and misinformation are mainly, when we speak about those two, are mainly used during election times and during politically motivated rallies and ideas. So they're less harmful than the malinformation that we tend to see we saw during the COVID pandemic. So now, more or less, we cannot gather those three in the terms of the Ukraine war. We mainly see in Bulgaria, because we do not actively participate in the war. We see misinformation and disinformation, but malinformation comes when the problem occurs at the place that you actively live in. So we give an example, Bulgaria. So can I have the next slide? Checks and balances are more or less important. Sadly, internet came around actively in Bulgaria in 92, 93, I can say. I'm born 1999, I can say I'm a millennial. And I actively started using internet around 97, 98. Generation X, which was actively also started using it, but at an age that they can comprehend it, were not so much, I wouldn't say attracted, but were not so much, I cannot use the term misinformed by the information that is spread around. Why do I say this? Because depending on your generation and depending on the generational shift, you require certain types of, and you get out certain types of information out of the public online sphere. So when we speak about information checks and balances, this is what we speak about. So you can see how it is spread. So the first person sends it to 3 people. One person decides not to spread a rumor to another chat. Then you see the other checks and balances, which are 2 on the second level, which is double checking the facts and also not opening information from not trusted sources. And of course, we see on the third level, people asking actually if the information is true. However, negative information is easily spread. It is psychologically induced, for especially, as I said in the beginning, in times of crisis, for negative information to have a bigger spread. And it's not only due to the social media, it has happened in the past, but the speed that is happening now is due to the reliance and, of course, availability of different kinds of Internet of Things devices. So the speed is the matter, not the type of information that is spread around. We had it in the past as well. And can I have the next slide? The generational shifts. So sadly, the baby boomers, you can see the coming of age and the retirement. We are going towards the retirement age of baby boomers. Now, the next generations are arising. In order, there is certain types of analysis. In order for educational purposes, and in order for government, in order for public media to implement such policies of fact-checking and also enriching the intelligence of the people that are using the social media, they should start from the period of their birth. After the age of 30, this information is less and less. There is a less and less throughput towards the idea of the person. So, in order for us to have an opportunity to block such kinds of malinformation, misinformation, or disinformation, different kinds of policies should be implemented at the level of first grade, of not high school, but elementary school, in order for such policies to be efficient. I'm sorry that I speak fast and I speak a very en gros, as they say, but I have to be briefer. Please, can I have the next slide? So the debate here is more information good for the overall outcomes? Is the idea of having the opportunity to check Wikipedia or to check Google and to check about different things easily good for the overall outcomes? Because every time you check WebMD, your diagnosis at the end is cancer, no matter if your head hurts or if your hand hurts. Every time it's cancer. So is more information good for the overall outcomes? I say no. What is the difference between quality and quantity of information? This is another type of debate we're having in the university, the quality and quantity. And sometimes now, actually, there is a difference. Generation Z now tends to choose less information in order to have the opportunity to comprehend it well. There are studies in that area. So there is an opportunity to intervene there. Is there a subjective point of view? General understanding. Always. There is a subjective point of view depending on the political situation, depending on the economic situation. The more economically stable societies tend to have a more objective point of view, and the less economically sustainable societies have the, of course, more subjective point of view. Do we have trusted authorities? I can say no.
Mr. Sharkov, I'm sorry to interrupt. Thank you. If you can hear me, I have a signal here that we have 1 minute left. If we can go
very
to
well.
conclusion.
I'm going faster and faster. Do we have the trust in authorities? There are studies in the area that our generation, millennials, do not trust authorities, do not recognize them as authorities, unlike a Generation X, unlike the baby boomers. So trust in authorities is less and less effective in terms of spreading information and using it properly. So there is more or less a society of the third wave, which is the mediators take the main field. So there is more trust in the mediator, someone who's an influencer, you can put like that, rather to towards the Ministry of Healthcare or to the Ministry of Finance. And how different generations perceive information. This is a topic that we'll leave for next time, but I tried to give a broader picture earlier on in the presentation. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'm at your disposal through Manuela and through the Ministry of Healthcare and through the Sofia University St. Timothy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sharkov. Thanks for your time and good luck with your Evernews interview as a next step. I'm moving directly to the next speakers. I would like to mention one more time, please look on the timer of your screen and follow the time of 6-7 minutes for each presentation. I would invite now our host today. This is Dr. Plamen Rusev, who is the founder and executive chairman of Webit Foundation. Dr. Rusev, please. We cannot hear you, Dr. Rusev.
Okay, do you hear me now? Sorry for that.
Yes.
Oh, it always happens like this. It's always the host that doesn't unmute the microphone. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me, and it's a true honor to have TVS hosting this wonderful event. I am in the business of creating more digital opportunities and making them real. And we've been doing this for the past 30 years. And TVS is just a continuation of this effort of ours. But very often people ask, what is Metaverse actually? Well, I would say that Metaverse is that moment of time when your digital life matters more than your personal in-person life. And when that happens, that's where the Metaverse starts. And we see that we move from plants to laptops. We meet our people that we work with at Reddit, or some of them at Tinder. We meet our neighbors at neighborhoods, and all this is actually converging into one completely new, very exciting, and at the same time very challenging environment. So from that perspective, Metaverse is where we will see our digital identities, more than one, by the way, becoming more and more important, way more important, rather than our in-person personal such. So from that perspective, it is really a very interesting place to be. It doesn't, I mean, we will see that in the next years, how we will manage our identities. We will experience all the challenges of protecting those identities more and more from different types of challenges and scams. So it will require really well-educated and really very well-prepared people for the next steps of making the Metaverse both more real than the real life, because that's where we are going to see the emanation of our work, of our personalities, and of course of what we will call further kind of a personal life that most of the people will anyway have one or another way into the Metaverse. And yeah, there are always people who say these are, what kind of life is this? And how do we deal with all these challenges? But actually, this is another compression of time, which we have seen. Internet has done that already. And if we look at the Metaverse as the new internet, and you don't expect anything less than that, but further compression of time and hopefully further boosting of opportunities, which we see definitely on the horizon. Now, I'm a big believer in what we are doing. At the same time, though, we see our virtual and in-person events becoming in a very interesting relation within each other. We had an event of 100,000 people with 2 locations, hybrid in Sofia and in Miami. And we have seen that still the attention span of the in-person people, the in-person attendees, was like 1 to 10 compared to the online attention span. So obviously we still need to work to build more of it as more engaging, more, I would say, involving experiences, and we will see how this is going to work out. Now, because my team has invited me to join here, and of course I do it with what great pleasure. Maybe if I'm not sure if the format allows here Q&A and other questions, which I'll be more than happy to answer, or just to stop here. So please let me know.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rusev. Actually, we should stop here and we will be collecting the questions to you, and we will be happy to share all the questions from the live chat after. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you so much for inviting.
Thank you one more time. I would like to speed up and continue with our next speaker. We're moving to Spain now with Professor Claudia Lopez Frias, and she will be speaking about the augmented reality in the news, the case of the Volcano of La Palma. Professor Frias, thank you for your patience, and apologize one more time for being a little late with the agenda. Can you please unmute your microphone?
Sorry about that.
We can hear you now. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you to you. Thank you to Teodora. And good afternoon, everyone. 1 hour less from here from Spain. I would like to start by introducing myself. I'm Claudia Lopez. I'm a professor at the Complutense University of Madrid. I have been doctor since 2015, and I also combine my academic work with my professional work, director in general course in the Spanish Senate. In this conference, to which I'm very grateful for your invitation, I would like to talk about the use of augmented reality in news. Can we pass the next slide, please? New technologies have led to a series of events that are changing the narratives of the news. Submission to increasingly demanding audience and new forms of consumption have also contributed to a large number of change experienced by that type of program. Next, please. Currently, viewers watch television next to the second screens when they consume linear television. So the news, as the central pillar of programming, has been spectacularizing, seeking differentiation, which normally comes from the hand of technological innovation, whose objective is to be more attractive to viewers. Next, please. Augmented reality is a technology that merges the real world and the virtual world by overlaying computer-generated images. Although in its origins, augmented reality was not related to communication, it is currently a constant in video games or television, being the news where it takes on a great role. According to Technological Foundation, augmented reality are the technologies that allow the superimposition in real time of image markers or information generated virtually on image of the real world. Next, please. Augmented reality is understood in conjunction with virtual windows, another of the novelty of the news. To give more relevance to image sets has been incorporating more and more screens for the year. There are many news sets left that don't have a high resolution video wall Full HD or 4K to support you visually while attending the news. There are times when virtual windows and augmented reality are combined, giving a completely immersive feeling. Next, please. Another key to this augmented reality is that given in live is not recorded, since it will be a post-production. Although there are cases in which, due to temporary reason and complication of the creation, it is recorded to later inserted in live. These are normally cases in which we speak of immersive reality and not augmented reality, since they are post-production, where they are recording using a chroma key or using the video wall or the floor as a chroma key to later include the post-production effects. Next, please. Technically, what is to take long hours of work and increasingly reduce among to other reasons due to the journalist use of it, which require immediately and direct. And to do this, the graphic team works together with the production team with a software with which they model augmented reality, or they can build it completely, or build some renders, or build some part of the renders to later with another software send that graphic to control from where they are in the chairs of located in, with the sensorized cameras, and joint work between several professionals is necessary so that the placement of the augmented reality from the sensorized cameras is in the best possible way. This process is thanks to a real-time graphic mapping with the precise technology to interpret some cardinal points in space that place the corresponding digital image. Next, please. In its beginning, this technology for television was mainly used in elections, where the candidates and their votes were materialized, but the evolution has been becoming more and more spectacular, no longer bringing the candidates to the television set, but turning it into the Congress or into the planet Mars, among many other examples. Narratively, it represents a change that has given rise to a new television language. Next, please. Nowadays, it has become one more tool which will complement the information, which is why it's usually used in certain news and not in other. And the most used are those that are predictable, as such as election or everything that is on the news agenda, for reason of timing for their creation. For the same reason, it is also used in the news that lasts long time. The objective is to present the information in a novel way, which is not be achieved only with traditional news, providing a space-time context, which it will be not have if we were not with augmented reality, learning or expanding the information and making the viewer feel in the news location, but where the visual evolution and content should go hand in hand. Highly applaud this example, and one I would like us to see is the coverage by my Canarian public television about La Palma volcano catastrophe that erupted on September 19, 2021. The eruption stopped on December 13 after 85 days of activity, being the longest historical eruption recorded on the island. And all this time, Radio Televisión Canarias transmitted all the information from the beginning, all the information necessary to understand the dimension of the eruption. They made an unprecedented coverage. Its reporters and camera were deployed through the island to report on the mouth or fissure of the volcano and showing the path of the lava and the relief of augmented reality to explain that the consequences that the catastrophe was going to have in an immersive and without sensationalizing houses destroyed by lava or everywhere kids people or of this drama. So we can see the video now, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Frias. I would like to ask the technical team just to play the first 10 seconds of the video because we're running over time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to you, Manuela.
We will be publishing the link to the video on the website of the project, I believe.
Perfect.
Esta es una erupción fisural. Vamos a intentar explicarlo. Se origina a lo largo de una rotura de la corteza terrestre. La mayor parte del volcanismo canario es de tipo monogénico, un volumen de magma ascendente a la superficie y que genera pequeños conos volcánicos alineados según la fisura. Dicha fisura en realidad refleja el dique que hay debajo alimentando la erupción. Aquí en La Palma tenemos dos fisuras de norte a sur. Es una característica histórica de la isla, por eso tiene la forma alargada de corazón. Y durante este proceso eruptivo ha llegado a tener hasta 8 bocas, ahí lo están viendo, por las que sale el material magmático. Desde el involcán nos dicen que unas bocas emiten lava.
Thank you. Yeah, so we will be moving now with the next speaker of our conference. This is Professor Ivanka Mavrudieva, and she's a professor from the Faculty of Philosophy at the Sofia University, St. Clement Ochridsky, and she will be speaking about digital literacy and virtual audiences.
Hello, I will speak very briefly. I'm professor on rhetoric, but rhetoric is not a verbiosity. This is the art how to persuade every single audience. And now, in the 21st century, it's very important to adapt rhetorical heritage to digital environment and to combine traditional rhetorical tools to new reality. And digital literacy is not only using of 1, 2, 3 programs or softwares. Now, everybody should develop gradually digital literacy and to transform behavior from user to creator of the digital content. And it's very important to manage digital content. And in connection with preliminary speakers, digital literacy is very important, how to spot fake news, how to neutralize the effect of fake news, how to find credible sources, how to verify information from different sources, and how to go to conclusion. And I will go to the next constructors of topic of my presentation. It is virtual audience. Virtual audience is not homogeneous. It's very heterogeneous. Virtual audience includes active citizens as well as lurkers, lazy bones, people who stay 1, 2, 3, 10, 12 hours every single day. But how to pay attention of virtual audience? Probably it will be one person, probably small group, probably 1,000 people. And now we should think about our virtual audience, about second life of our presentations, lectures, debates, or something else, because they have second life on virtual environments. And probably people who has high level digital literacy can prepare fake deep videos, or to prepare meme, or to organize new video, and to use rhetorical devices look like parody and paraphrasing, irony, sarcasm, and they create the second variant of on the base of the original. And more active people can present different variants on the base of the preliminary and original speech. And in the end, I would like to conclude that it's very important to develop gradually media digital literacy, not only media, not only digital. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mavodiva, and thank you for your patience for being with us this evening. I'm moving directly to our next speaker. Thanks so much to Alena Dauskaya-Latusiewicz, hopefully I pronounced it correctly, to be with us this evening. And she will be speaking on war communications and how the Ukrainian peer community overcomes the challenges of Russian propaganda. Alena, the time is yours. Please just follow the 7 minutes time. I would really appreciate that.
Okay, yeah, hello everyone, thank you for the invitation. I will try to be as fast as I can, because the topic is actually should be, I think, discovered more and specifically in scientific way. This is the whole point of why I'm raising this topic today in front of you, dear colleagues, because what we see now, we mix a bit crisis communication and war communication in the world of PR and communications. So as you see, my background, unfortunately, it's not real. This is my beautiful homeland. It's Kiev, where I've been born and lived all my life until Russia attacked my country. I haven't been home for almost 9 months. And today, as you know, morning start again very bad for whole Ukraine. 50 Russian missiles attacked our country, and most of our colleagues being without water and electricity. So I'm very proud, and again, I'm very thankful that I'm on behalf of Ukrainian PR community can speak to you, and of course, in more professional and scientific way. Please, next slide. Of course, I'm not going to stop a lot about myself, but just for you to know why I'm here with you. I have more than 20 years of experience in marketing communications and, of course, PR. So I think according to my previous job in esports communication, I have a kind of black belt in crisis communications. That's why I feel, you know, this energy to speak about this topic. So you can see my LinkedIn. I would appreciate to get networking after this event. So please, next slide. I think what is very important for everyone to understand, and especially for people from scientific field, that what we see, what we witness now, it's first online war in general in our history. Because Second War, of course, it was much bigger scale, but first we can witness what's going on just from our cell phones. All mornings and evenings starts and ends with checking the news. Especially, we have to be very, very careful with information. A lot of fake news, as you know. So even people without water, food, or sometimes even electricity until they have the batteries, but they still have Starlink, they have internet. So I think this is the whole point of all the background of what I'm gonna talk to you today. Next slide, please. So what's the difference between crisis communications and war communications? I think this is the whole point, what I spot for already more than even not 8 months, even I think longer, because we start preparing crisis, and it was still crisis communication because it was only a threat of war, that a lot of huge companies, corporations, and even I think crisis communication. Please, next slide. We still talk about next slide, please. We still talk about risks, and we still talk about how to manage it. So here it's my, let's say, hypothesis, which definitely I would like to compare these two ways of, in general, in most companies, even small scale business, maybe they don't have book, but most of big companies, they know the media landscape, their stakeholders. In work communication, you can't map the threat in advance. We all been looking for, expecting for probably a war attack from Russia, but we even didn't think that Belarus will be first days of war, the main territory from which they're gonna literally. And as we can go back to Second War as well, like the whole world been not preparing for this. So point number one, it's very hard to be prepared to war communication. It's just coming. So point number three, that still when you have crisis communication, you can handle it with your reputation, everything you've been doing before, because you are brand with trustworthy, you have huge credibility from your stakeholders, from the media, of course, and this is very important. But despite all this, I think in war communication, reputation doesn't work so much. It still comes naturally, either if it goes about business, business goals, or of course more strategic goals. So you are limited, you're limited as well, and of course you're limited with propaganda, which we've been, of course, talking today. And I think point number three, that each crisis has cycles, as we know from the theory. Of course, as Timothy Combs or other authoritative PR professional and communication. So when you're PR pro or pro in communication, you already know the science, like a good doctor. When it looks like the crisis is going to be over, in war communication, nothing like this. You don't know what's going to be next and how to be prepared. So like as well, just an example on government level or state level of communication. Of course, I don't think that someone in even global media been preparing that we're gonna talk about, for example, Iranian drones, that kind of stuff. So what is very important in crisis communication? It's very easy to find the best tone of voice still, because your stakeholders. In work communication, what is the worst and the hardest? I think it's because it can't be a lot of colors. It's either black or white. It's like in the sport. Of course, it can be at the end of football game, like 1-1, score, but usually still at the end of, I don't know, Champions League or UEFA or that kind of huge events, still there is a winner. So the same in war, there can't be, just shake your hands and go back to your life. Still, they're victim and aggressor. So that's why I think this is the main challenge from my perspective, what I'm looking around in global communications, that most, the issue is that still we approach war with crisis communication that's not helping us to be proper communicate and to be effective. Next slide, please.
Elena, you will have 1 minute. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, so we can skip the propaganda. I know that everyone knows about it. We can skip my video with Guardian as well. If you like, I can share it with you on LinkedIn. This is actually was just a good example how on first day of war, 24th of February, for me, it was very important to deliver to the world that it's not a conflict, like we still can check it in the media. So the perception of the audience was very important. So I pinged my UK colleague and asked that I need this media, please help me. I need to deliver the message that it's the war. And that was kind of my condition if I'm gonna be interviewed by The Guardian, that they should leave it in the video. Next slide, please. As well, with my former employee, we've been preparing huge project in 6 languages about 5 myths of Russian propaganda. It was based on scientific level as well. We have a lot of people from history who contributed to this project, and that was our attempt even on corporate level to influence on it. Next slide, please.
We are running over time, so I would really ask you for a final word. Sorry.
Can we skip just fast the slides just to see how I've been prepared for our meeting? Next one, please. And next, just, quick, if you can do it. And,
we can share the presentation with everyone later. If you
yes,
prefer.
and just last second for me, please. I want to say that our last challenge was to ban speakers from Web Summit, actually, which is starting today, and all my PR team, my team players I can see from the market there over there. So we from grassrooting we push the organization. So thank you so much. Of course, it's a very deep topic to discuss it more. I don't want to waste your time. Thank you for attention. Slava Ukraini. Bye.
Thank you so much, Elena, for attending the conference. This was really important for us to have you here, and I really appreciate that. I would like to directly move on to and be back to Bulgaria and give the floor to Professor Dubrinka Pecheva. Professor Pecheva, thank you so much for your patience. Do we have Professor Pecheva on the line?
My title is Media Ecology, Challenges for Young People in Social Networks. I saw a mistake in program, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Here it is right, because Media Ecology Association is the biggest media association, and it is right to say media ecology challenges, not media environment challenges. I'll be briefly, but some words that for traditional media, as we see in data of Eurobarometer in last edition 2022, we see that television dominates the primary news source, 75%. Next are online news platforms, 43%. but younger respondents are much more likely than older respondents to use social media platforms and blogs to access news. 45% of 18-24 years old versus 15 to of 55 years old. We may see the table, the next here I may say something. A majority of respondents use Facebook. You see 67%, WhatsApp 61%, YouTube 56%. But among 15-24 years old, Instagram is the most used social media, 78%, TikTok 49%, and Snapchat 43%. But there is difference in posting habits. 28% of 24-year-olds post their own content on social media compared to 15% of 55 years old. Most trusted media, this is interesting, that most trusted media sources, traditional broadcast and print media and their online presence rank higher as trusted news sources than online new platforms and social media. This is the same for young people too. The next. 10% of respondents think that in the past 7 days, they have very often been exposed to disinformation and fake news. 18% reply that this happened often in the past 7 days. We see that this is very, very high percent. A majority of respondents feel confident they can recognize disinformation and fake news. 20% feel very confident, and 52% somewhat confident. This is very positive data, because especially for Bulgarian, where earlier. Next is sorry. A majority of respondents feel confident they can recognize this information. To Bulgarian, 80% feel very confident and 49% somewhat confident. There are also differences between socio-demographic groups among 15-24 years old. 68% feel confident they can recognize disinformation compared to 58 for 55 years old. The next. There are several directions of searching for ways out against the deepening pollution of media messages in social networks, and not only in them. Based on Media Literacy Index that Open Society Institute in Bulgaria places on European countries every year, and the indicators on which it is determined, we would allow ourselves to appeal to the following relevant changes: drastically sanction of media that disinform audience, and introduction of media literacy at discipline in all at every school age. And in the end, sorry for a minute, there is differences with data of open society in Bulgaria and the data of Eurobarometer. We see that in open society, the index of media literacy, Bulgaria is in the last place, but in Eurobarometer, we see that our young people, and not only young people, may recognize false news, fake news in high level. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Professor Pejčeva. Thank you for
sorry,
providing. No, it was very interesting. Thanks for providing this important data. We always need data to make our thoughts. We're moving now to the next academic representatives this evening. Professor Madhawain Danova, Professor of American Literature and Culture at the Department of English and American Studies and the Dean of the Faculty of Classical and Modern Philology at the Sofia University, Clement Ochridsky.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this conference. It's a real pleasure, and I was very attentively listening to all the people speaking before me, so I would try to stay within the limits, but probably everyone is wondering why literature when talking about metaverse. Just a reminder that the very term comes from a literary work, from a science fiction work that was published in 1992, Snow Crash, and another reminder that the very term internet was first envisioned in a book that was published in 1959, Naked Lunch by William Burroughs. So literature has a lot to do, but I'll try to convince you in that in the few minutes that I have. So I start this talk about literature and the new age of information, taking my cue from Scott Lash's book, Critique of Information, in which he sees the contemporary age as an information age. And he delineates this great difference that is there between narrative and discourse on the one hand, and information on the other hand. For him, just a quote, the primary qualities of information are flow, disembeddedness, spatial compression, temporal compression, real-time relations. And in this sense, informational knowledge, he thinks, is increasingly displacing narrative and discursive knowledge. What then happens to literature in this new society, this new information society, where identities are not only fragmented and discursive, but hybridized in new entities that are dual, combining the opposites in some kind of dialectics? One possible answer is that we have to talk about the decline of literature, its disappearance with the establishment of this new mode of information, or to face a total transformation of the field of literature due to the influence of genetics, the media, and the disappearance of the fundamental characteristics of nation state in the era of globalization. I prefer to see literature as participating in an ongoing process of cultural exchange and hybridization, a process which bespeaks the glocal as one of the new products of the information age or of the network society. My hypothesis is that in this network society, based on the systemic disjunction between the local and the global in the words of Manuel Castells, literature does not so much lose its characteristics of a narrative discourse, but is hybridized, or to use another of the terms that are quite popular today, creolized in the cultural flow. So the next slide, please. Such an understanding shifts the attention from the question of symbolic and ideological struggles and imagined communities, again in Lash's words, to the real. The real, in his understanding, is not just an opposition of the symbolic and the imagined, but it is primarily a space of communication, whose logic is the logic of flows, since the network society privileges communication and circulation. The next slide, please. Although the idea of cultural flows usually presupposes the use of the term global, I have chosen instead the term glocal, mainly because of its hybrid quality. And here you can see this definition that is taken from the Oxford Dictionary of New Words. For the sake of time, I would not read through it, but it's important because, and I quote it here at length, because in my understanding, it has a very direct relevance to literature because it somehow incorporates three of the most important features of contemporary culture. So let's move to the next slide, please. First, it expresses the very hybrid nature of contemporary culture and consequently literature. As another of the contemporary cultural critics, Ulf Hannertz, observes, here we are now with hybridity, collage, melange, hodgepodge, montage, synergy, bricolage, creolization, mestiization, mongrelization, syncretism, transculturation, third cultures, and what have you. It seems hybridity is at present the more favored general term. And it is important to note that this term is not the only one that has come into use, but it seems to be the most popular, and it has been used for quite some time in the field of literature due to the works of Mikhail Bakhtin and its subsequent use by post-colonial critics such as Homi Bhabha, but I will just mark this. I would not go into the details. Second, this
Professor Danova, we have 1 minute left.
Yeah.
Sorry for
Okay.
interrupting.
So I'll just make my point. It is important that the term glocal comes from the Far East, a suggestive move from the center to the periphery. I'm still with the previous slide, sorry about that. And not the other way around, which seems to be the case with literature today as well. If we look at the most prestigious literary awards for the last decades, the most striking fact is that an ethnic, in inverted commas, of course, author has won at least one of the annual awards, if not all of them. And finally, what we have encoded in this definition of the glocal is another piece of evidence that contemporary society is about marketing and not so much about production. As the definition says, from the field of agriculture, toil and manual labor, attention has shifted towards the marketing of the produce, towards making people consume more and more by exploiting the local conditions. And such an understanding, of course, presupposes also the use of another concept, diaspora, but probably I should now try to stop here because it is no time to, that's the next slide already, to talk about this, but this understanding of diaspora that I've quoted here is very much connected exactly to this term of the flow, the cultural flow. And there are many different ways to illustrate this. Of course, that was my intention, just to give you some illustration of this using one of the American Asian American writers, Bharati Mukherjee, but obviously that will be another time. Probably we can end with my almost last slide, last but one. Okay, so I'll have to skip this about the economy. And as I said, probably somebody will read Desirable Daughters, one of the important books of Bharati Mukherjee, where we have this idea of how information and disconnectedness that we are so much about. And in Metaverse, this is also the main problem, functions not only on global level, but also on this local level. So basically, this is
Thank you.
how
Thank
I
you
would
so
like
much.
to end. Let me just have
Yeah.
the last but one slide, please. Okay, so one more and one more. The next one. Okay, so Zuckerberg's Metaverse. That's something that I something that popped up one day ago. And thank you very much for your attention. But I would also like to say that there are a lot of questions that literature answers probably before we post them, as in all these annual reports that we have on Metaverse. I've used one quote in the previous slides. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your participation and for referring to the topic of our conference. I am moving now to our next speaker, and this is Professor Daniil Danov from the Faculty of Educational Sciences and Arts at the Sofia University, speaking on media literacy as a new approach in education.
Thank you so much. Given the time limits, I would not make a presentation, I'll just talk. And thanks a lot to the organizers and also to the people of the sport. And thanks also for the opportunity to meet some people who I haven't seen for 40 years, even more. Well, media literacy, quite a trendy topic, but certainly we'll start with a definition. And I will start with a classical one, that of Sonia Livingstone, who offered it like 3 decades ago, claiming that this is an expanded understanding of literacy and includes the ability to access, to analyze media content, as well as to create, reflect, and react appropriately to media messages. In my views, however, there is a need of reconsideration of this definition, although I'm not at all rejecting it. Simply, at least for the Bulgarian context, it needs a redefinition, reconsideration. You see, during the last 2 decades, the world has witnessed a rapid development of digitization and digitalization. I'm making a difference between these two notions. And by digitization, I mean the various technical aspects of the process, while by digitalization, I'm referring to all the socio-cultural aspects and changes that happened as a result of digitization. And any type of analysis would bring about the conclusion that today's world is quite different from what it was only 20 years ago. The continuing technological revolution faced society with changes in both social and economic development. And those changes resulted in new social and individual needs faced by people of all ages and professions, with new challenges required by the labor market. And these changes also impacted strongly the education, bringing about new goals and consequently to new means to achieve those goals. In a nutshell, modern education moved from knowledge and skills-oriented objectives towards competences, trying to bridge the gap between academia and the industry. Here I will just quote the president of the European Association of US Interests, Paolo Cello, who claims that insufficient media literacy nowadays, and certainly in the future, will be equal to a disabling deficiency in regard to progress opportunities. And I think it's high time to offer my understanding of media literacy, which I find completely valid, at least for the Bulgarian context. So it's a set of 3 orientations, and the first one certainly include broad complex of digital skills, new approach to education based on critical thinking and digital media usage, and lastly, proper attitudes towards civic participation. And thanks a lot to the people who talked already about this. In support of such an understanding, I would offer a few examples which illustrate my thoughts. And let's see first the age at which children make their first visit to the internet. I'll just say much earlier, before they are able to read and write, even before they are able to tie their shoes. So we need media literacy. Or just think about the time spent on social networks. Statistics says that it's more than 3 hours a day for children, even more, and especially on weekends. So in order to protect ourselves, to protect consumers, we need media literacy. And media channels around us pile us with tons and gigabytes of information, large portions of which are fake news. To tell the right from wrong, to be able to tell what is fake, what is not fake, we need media literacy. And at some point of my talk, I said my reconsideration of what media literacy is certainly valid for Bulgaria, it's because of statistics. And Professor Pecheva mentioned the DAS statistics in terms of where we are at the European ranking. And in fact, it means that 32, 33%, not more than that, can be considered as media literacy, because you see, the very fact that you are capable of using digital tools does not make you media literate. And lastly, strongly with the focus of this conference, of this event, no metaverse is ever possible without digital, without media literacy. And
Professor Danev, final words. Sorry for interrupting.
1 minute, not more than this. To get out of this dire situation, we at Sofia University, at my faculty, we have designed a program oriented to all ages. And well, basically, its philosophies, media awareness, media understanding, media attitude, and media behavior. Well, probably I'll finish here. You have my presentation and my contacts as well. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much for joining the conference and for your patience to stay with us until the end. We are moving now with our final two guests. I would like to invite Associate Professor Stefan Serezliev from the Department of Journalism and Public Relations in the University of Veliko Trnovo to speak about design as a strategic tool and resource in the creative and cultural industries.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me, Houston?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks for joining us. Please just keep the 5-6 minutes time. I would really appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the invitation and thanks for your attention. Maybe go directly to the website. No, compliments to all colleagues for the wonderful presentations. I will briefly focus my presentation on the perspectives of design in the context of the creative and cultural industries. The first slide. In the second decade of the 21st century, design has a new role in both the creative and cultural industries in society. It concerns both in-house communication agency management and outside freelancers in various areas of creative production. For example, there are too many actors and stakeholders in the creative process who have different organizational and creative codes. That is, in general, different attitudes to creativity, to the rational and emotional benefits of the creative artworks and process and so on. The next. At the same time, design continues to try to qualify its role in the communication process. The role of design is very specific because of different areas of design: communication design, digital design, product design, space design, etc. It's like integrated market communications work together. It is a particular importance that design is not only a realized product, but also a process. The next. In general, the communication tools of design are more different from advertising and PR, for example. I can say more holistic and human-centric. The next one. For example, at the level of communication management, to observe problems in the adoption and the application of art direction in different strategic communication disciplines, different types of advertising, etc. We find the same problem in the media and other areas of the creative and cultural industries. The next. At the management level, the main problem is that design perceived as a visual phenomenon only that has its primary goal. And that is a very big problem because the full resources of design in terms of conceptualization cannot be used. The next one. In general, in this sense, the statement that design adds value to communication and makes strategy visible to valid and significant. The next. At the same time, we must consider that design process overall conceptual, philosophical, strategic, and communication paradigm. Only in this way we will achieve the necessary integration and optimal level. So we can see the vast slide. In general, it's mean that's the everything man-made is designed, even if not by a professional designer. And it's the work of good designers and good clients in general in delivering value. That's a very, I think, extremely organized organigram for the process of design. In general, that's not only the product, but the process. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Associate Professor Serzliev. Thanks for keeping the time frame and being with us and for your patience. And we have now our last guest speaker this evening, and this is Mr. Kauyan Ganev, who is actually studying and doing his doctorate at the Faculty of Journalism and Mass Communication. He will be speaking about something very important. It's Web 3.0, how to grow and engage your audience. And Mr. Ganev actually is head of data and analytics. So he's combining academic and practical work. And we are looking forward to hear the last presentation. Mr. Ganev, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kauyan. Thank you for the introduction, Manuela. I'd like to thank the organizers of the conference today for inviting me and thank the previous speakers for the great content so far. Yes, as you mentioned, I also head up the data analytics department at Beryllium, and among other projects, we've worked on a Web3 project which allows users to trade in tokens of professional sports players. And along the way, we've partnered with a few NFT projects to create some unique utility of owning NFTs in the form of trading cards of athletes. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you from my experience what the key prerequisites are to successfully build and grow an audience in the context of a Web3 project. Next slide, please. So as with Web2, the most challenging part is definitely getting started, acquiring your first followers, and start growing a community behind the project itself. I'd argue that the most important thing for a Web3 project is to have a very well-defined purpose, which is communicated clearly to the rest of the world. All of the well-known concepts and best practices for building a brand, identifying a relevant audience, engaging in strategic communication across key channels, etc., are very much applicable in Web3 as well. However, the channels that are used are slightly different, and the communication itself with the community is really unique. Now, depending on the Web3 project, you might want to go after a Web3 native or a Web2 audience, or maybe even a mix of both. But the way you would go about reaching and engaging people in those audiences is quite different. There's still, at this time, a lot of barriers to entry in Web3. So just as an example, to interact with most Web3 projects, you'd have to create a non-custodial wallet, you'd have to fund it with tokens, you might have to bridge funds across different chains and do a bunch of other things that make the whole experience pretty clunky. This is why it's crucial to have great educational content around not only your project and the benefits of it, the problem you're trying to solve, but also about onboarding users to the Web3 ecosystem as a whole, because it's just not very easy to use it even now. In Web3, one of the most effective ways I've seen to organically attract users is via appealing tokenomics and token incentivization structures. In the NFT world in particular, one common feature across the most successful projects like Bored Apes is providing ongoing utility to the owners of the NFTs. In fact, there's a very interesting trend now where digital goods provide unique benefits in the physical world itself, thereby merging the two instead of isolating the two worlds in silos. And in fact, I'd say 99% of NFT projects fail predominantly because even if they do manage to generate some interest for the NFTs initially, they can't maintain that because their product is usually just some basic image that can only be traded for speculative value. So providing utility is really key over here. What we found is the best channels to reach a Web3 audience proactively are mostly organic. I'm going to focus mostly on the Web3 audiences because there's already a lot of literature on Web2. We know about a lot of examples on Web2, etc. No, still previous slide. Yeah, you reach audiences mostly organically because actually a lot of advertisers like Facebook have very strict policies around advertising crypto project. So paid is actually quite a limited channel. The key acquisition channels I've seen work best are mostly social media, particularly Twitter, and the term crypto Twitter exists for a reason. That's where the majority of crypto enthusiasts hang out and share information and opinions about upcoming projects and everything around Web3 really.
So we have 1 minute left. Sorry for interrupting you.
Okay, then the other couple of prominent channels are YouTube and Telegram. Telegram especially, we've seen a lot of success with acquisitions where a lot of alpha groups are found there. So these are groups of people, like-minded people that go and search for the newest projects, the coolest things that are coming up, and they share information between themselves. So that's one of the best ways to really get a lot of people to see your projects very early on. So next slide, please. So the most unique thing about Web3 is really how you engage with your audience. It's unique because the community plays a really key role over here in your project. And in fact, with usually as projects evolve, they tap into decentralization. So actually the community become the owners of the projects and they get to decide on the key decisions in the evolution of the project itself. This is completely different, as you know, from Web 2. So imagine this would be if Facebook was governed by its users rather than Zuckerberg himself. And in terms of the key channels over here, by far the go-to channel is Discord, which is one which is not used in Web 2 at all. And this is where the community really hangs out. This is where you discuss topics with them. You have moderators that are usually part of the team, and you share key updates, milestones, insights, and get insights from your community.
Can we move to the conclusion, please?
Yes, sure. So I would just want to say that right now, Web3 is still very early in its stages, even though there's been now a lot of media coverage in the past couple of years around it. There are actually still not a lot of products that solve any practical applications. And the people that are flocking to these projects are mainly there for just the hype, the excitement around them, and to potentially get some benefits of being early users of the projects. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for being our guest. I would like to move on directly to Professor Teodora Petrova for her closing words.
What I should say, thank you to all the participants. We'll have the conference online, and we'll also invite them in an electronic issue, which will be published at University Press of Sofia University. Thank you to the production team. Thank you, Manuela. Sorry, but all those conferences, and especially ours, just is overtime. So thank you for the patience of the participants, and I'll invite them to send them some of their text if they want to be published. Otherwise, they'll be in internet. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.